A useful shift happened this week, and it is not another flashy model launch. It is a change in how AI is being judged. OpenAI published what it calls a scorecard for the AI age. The company's argument is simple. If AI is going to be genuinely useful, people should measure it by the work it finishes, not just by how impressive it looks in a demo. In OpenAI's framing, the important questions are whether the system completes useful work, how much that successful work costs, how dependable it is, and whether its value improves as it is used at larger scale. That may sound obvious, but it is a meaningful change in emphasis. A lot of AI buying has still been driven by vague promises: faster drafts, smarter search, better productivity. Those are not wrong, but they are too fuzzy to guide a real purchase or a real workflow change. OpenAI is pushing the conversation toward proof. Did the tool actually close the task? Did it save time? Did it reduce retries? Did it create less cleanup for a human at the end? That is the real story here. AI is moving from being judged as a spectacle to being judged as infrastructure. And for creators, freelancers, and small businesses, that is a much better way to think about it. If you run a one-person business, you do not need a model that sounds brilliant in isolation. You need one that helps finish a newsletter, answer customer questions, summarize a call, draft a proposal, or turn messy notes into something usable. If you are a creator, you do not need 10 different ideas. You need one that gets to a publishable draft with fewer edits. If you are a small team, you do not care whether the tool looks clever for 30 seconds. You care whether it reduces the time between a request coming in and the work being done. OpenAI's scorecard, as described in its own post, puts those outcomes at the center. That matters because it changes what a smart buyer should ask before adopting a tool. Instead of asking, "How advanced is the model?" ask, "What task does it actually finish?" Instead of asking, "How many features does it have?" ask, "How much human cleanup still remains?" Instead of asking, "What is the token price?" ask, "What is the cost per successful task?" That last idea is especially useful. Cost per successful task is not the same as cost per prompt. A cheap prompt that produces a weak draft and forces you to rewrite everything can be more expensive than a pricier system that gets you to a final answer in one pass. The same is true for dependability. An AI tool that works beautifully on Monday and breaks your workflow on Friday may look good in a test, but it is not dependable enough for repeated use. OpenAI is also highlighting scale effects, which is another practical clue. A tool might help one person a little. The bigger question is whether it continues to hold up when more people, more documents, or more repeated jobs are involved. That is where many tools become less impressive. What looks smooth in a solo demo can get messy when it has to support a real team, a real client load, or a real weekly production cycle. To be clear, this is OpenAI's framing. It is a vendor claim and a strategic message, not an independent benchmark standard. The company is telling buyers how it thinks AI should be evaluated. That does not mean every organization should adopt the same scorecard in the same way. It does mean the market is moving toward more disciplined measurement, and that is healthy. So what should you do with this? First, pick one weekly task. Just one. Something repeatable. A research summary, a client follow-up draft, a product description, a meeting recap, a short proposal. Then measure the task in the old way and in the AI-assisted way. Do not just ask whether the AI made a draft. Ask 4 plain questions. Did it finish faster? Did it require fewer edits? Did it cut down on retries? And did it produce something accurate enough that you could trust it after a normal human review? That last part matters. AI can save time and still leave you with a mess if the cleanup work is hidden. A polished-looking draft can still need source checks, fact checks, tone corrections, and formatting fixes. If you are not counting that cleanup, you are not really measuring the workflow. Here is a practical example. Imagine you write a weekly client update. Normally, you gather notes from email, a doc, and a few links. Then you write the update, revise it, and check it against the original information. With AI, you might feed those notes into a tool and ask for a first draft. A shallow test would stop there and say, "Great, it wrote something." A better test would time the full process from source gathering to final approval. Did the AI reduce your total time? Did it surface the right facts? Did it require 2 edits or 6? Did it accidentally invent details that you had to remove? That is the difference between a demo and a workflow. OpenAI's scorecard also points to a deeper habit that many teams need to build. Treat AI as a system, not as a magic answer machine. If a tool saves time only when you ask perfectly shaped prompts, that is fragile. If it helps across multiple steps with predictable quality, that is much more valuable. For a business, that may mean looking at how the tool fits with your documents, your approval process, your customers, and your existing software stack. There are also risks in this new measurement mindset. One risk is overfitting to the metric. If you only measure speed, you may sacrifice accuracy. If you only measure output volume, you may reward more words instead of better work. If you only measure cost, you may choose a cheap tool that creates extra human labor later. Another risk is measuring the wrong task. AI can make easy tasks look impressive, while failing on the jobs that really matter. A tool that writes decent first drafts may still be bad at judgment, nuance, or edge cases. Another important caution: not every workflow should be automated just because it can be accelerated. Some work needs careful human review by default, especially when the output affects customers, public communication, or anything sensitive. OpenAI's scorecard is about useful work completed, not about removing review. For most real-world uses, human review remains part of the process, and there are unknowns here too. OpenAI has shared the framework it wants people to use, but we do not know whether this scorecard becomes a wider industry standard. We also do not know how quickly buyers will adopt it, or whether competing companies will use different measures. What we do know is that the conversation is shifting toward results that can be observed and compared. If you want a simple experiment, here is the one I would run this week. Choose a task that normally takes you about 30 minutes and involves research. Put that task into Gemini Notebook or a similar tool and work from a small set of source material. Then compare the AI-assisted version with your normal notes and docs process. Measure 3 things: total time to final output, factual accuracy, and cleanup required, if possible. Also count how many times you had to reprompt, rewrite, or correct the result. Do that once, and you will learn more than from a week of casual experimentation. Do it 3 times on different tasks, and you will start to see whether the tool is helping in a real way, or just producing nice-looking drafts. For most listeners, the verdict this week is test carefully. Not because the idea is weak, quite the opposite. The idea is strong enough to matter, but the value is in measurement, not in marketing. Start with one workflow, measure what actually changes, and keep the human review in place. That is the cleanest way to decide whether an AI tool is helping you do better work. The bigger watch item is whether this kind of scorecard thinking spreads beyond one company. If it does, expect more pressure on AI tools to prove themselves inside real business processes, not just in demos. That is good news for anyone who wants practical AI and less hype. So the headline for today is not that AI got smarter. It is that the bar is moving. The question is no longer only, can it do the task? The question is, can it do useful work well enough that a person can trust the result after a review? That is the standard that will shape the next phase of AI adoption.